I am Rachael. I am a holistic wellness practitioner. I specialize in helping people learn how to properly metabolize emotions. Most of us have been not taught how to do that. We were told, suck it up, buttercup, come over here, I'll give you something to cry about, right? Like, we were not really taught how to feel and know what happens when we do that. So it's unsafe to us. So I teach people how to do that. And through that process, you kind of decondition and you learn how to step into your authenticity. And so I'll go over a little bit more of what all of that means in the presentation, but that is who I am. And then you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Sierra. I am a holistic esthetician and massage therapist, and I've been doing skincare for about 10 years. And massage, I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary. But today we'll be talking about lymphatic drainage, which I actually went to massage school strictly for, because working with skin for so long, I've noticed like rashes, acne, things like that popping up, which, deeply rooted in the lymphatic system. So that's me, and that's why I'm here.
So before we dive into like the talking, into the yapping, we're going to do just a little exercise to get you grounded. This is part of what I do in coaching. It's very easy breath work, but it will help us kind of be here now and not in the car yelling at drivers or angry at our spouse or whatever, okay? So you can do this eyes open, eyes closed. It's totally up to you. And it's easy peasy. So everybody you can, if you're not super in touch with your emotions, most people are not, sometimes it does help to touch the heart. So pick a spot, close your eyes, keep them open, whatever you want to do. And we are going to focus the attention in the area of your heart. Imagine your breath is flowing in and out of your heart space. You want to breathe a little slower and a little deeper than usual, but find an easy rhythm that's comfortable. And as you continue to breathe, I want you to see if you can regenerate an emotion. So we're going to focus on positive emotions, high vibrational emotions like love, gratitude, or appreciation. If right now in this moment it feels hard for you to reach those, then focus on peace, ease, or neutral. And when I say regenerate it, I don't want you to think about it or to remember it. I want you to feel what it feels like and try to breathe that in and out of your heart space. We're going to take a few more deep breaths. When you're ready, open your eyes and come back to conversation. I love when I do this, especially when I get to kind of creepily stare at you while you do it, because your physiology actually changes when you create a moment of coherence, which is what we just did. And most people smile when they do it. You don't even realize that you're doing it, but most people smile. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about vibration, frequency, energy. I'm going to talk a little bit about the science of emotions and how to keep the energy flowing. And then we're going to tie that together with Sierra's specialization in the lymphatic drainage and what happens when you don't do that. So there's going to be the emotional component of how we get toxic emotionally, and then how we get toxic in our body and what we can do to fix that and solve that. So first, I want to talk about energy, vibration, and frequency. A lot of people use these terms interchangeably, but they mean different things. So energy is the capacity to do work or to cause change. And everything in the universe is made up of energy, right? You, me, the chair, the building, everything is made up of energy. And it exists in different forms like light, heat, kinetic energy, which is energy in motion. Vibration is just the moving back and forth of energy, and it's usually oscillating around a point, right? Again, everything in the universe, because it's made of energy, it also vibrates. And the frequency is just the rate or the speed at which something vibrates. So there are naturally differences in frequency. The frequency of a chair is different than the frequency of a human, than is different than the frequency of a piece of fruit, right? But it all is energy, and it all vibrates, and it all has frequency. And humans also have different levels of frequency within ourselves, but also in relation to ourselves and others. Now that we all have that same understanding, I want to talk about the fact that emotions are physiology. People think that emotions are this nebulous thing that exists somewhere in our soul, in our heart, but actually emotions are just physiology. And all emotions only last for a set amount of time. Anybody have any idea how long an emotion lasts? 90 seconds. Every single emotion that you feel only lasts 90 seconds. When I say that, most people are like, there's no way. If I'm really hurt or if I have grief, it lasts for days or years. But that is not true. The physiology of your emotion only lasts 90 seconds. If it lasts beyond that, it is because we are intellectualizing it, right? It's because we are putting it through our own lens of pain and hurt and conditioning and continuing to ruminate, repress, right? There's more pain that we cause ourselves by trying to prolong that than just allowing the energy of the emotions to flow. Every emotion and that biochemical process is triggered based off of some sort of internal or external stimuli. We can't always control what triggers us, but we can control the way we respond to that process, right? So it's sort of like now in modern day, I'm of the age where pretty soon I'm going to be going into menopause. And they used to tell you, oh, if you have a hot flash, fan yourself or do whatever you have to do to get cool. Now the modern advice on that is just let it flow. Because if you do all the movement of, oh, I have to make it cooler, or I'm going to do all these things to change the process, you just make it worse and you prolong it, right? All of that is just teaching us to allow our body and our physiology to flow, including the physiological process of our emotions. They're important because they help us understand what happens in the world. It helps us relate to people. It helps us understand when we do receive input, how that input impacts us personally and also how it impacts us in relation. So when we are intellectualizing, I mentioned the first two, so repression, resistance, and rumination. So repression is subconscious avoidance. So that is where you don't even realize necessarily that you're trying to not feel it, but it's like you've received an input that triggered an emotion, the physiological process of emotion, and you're now subconsciously like, oh, nope, I'm not feeling that, so that's going in a box, okay? The active avoidance of an emotion is resistance, right? So that is where you know that you don't want to feel it. It's not your body just doing it for you. It's not an automatic process. It is you realize, oh, if I start crying, I'm not going to stop. So I'm going to put that in a box and do it later. Or what happens more often, since most of the women, everybody in here is women, the other thing that we do is, oh, I want to have a human emotion, but I have a kid and I can't break down in front of the kid. So I'm just going to put it in a box and I'll feel that later, right? That's another active form of resistance. And the rumination is probably the most insidious and the most dangerous. And that is when we just think and think and think and replay and think and replay over and over and over and over and over again. Oh, I should have said this, or I could have done this, or hey, maybe if I would have been better at this, then this wouldn't have happened. And we get ourselves stuck in the emotion. When we don't metabolize emotions properly by allowing them to flow, they get stuck in the body and they create dis-ease. So that shows up sometimes as all of a sudden I'm like a Coke bottle that you put a memento in and everything's coming out all at once, right? Or it may be, oh, well, I have this issue with this is real life. My ankle hurts right now. I don't know why. I do know why, because I have some emotions that I have been ruminating and repressing on, and those particular emotions are associated with ankle pain, right? So there is a lot of clues that your body gives you that tells you, hey, something's not right here. And while, yes, often there are physiological reasons for that, there is also a lot of emotional stuff for that. And we can't get fully healed and be our best and at our most well if we're not processing and metabolizing the emotions. Okay, so what's the antidote to that? Expression is the antidote to resistance and to repression. So if you think about it, if you feel anger and you actively avoid letting that out because it's not the right time, it's not the right place, you feel like you can't control it, whatever that is, that gets choked down and it stays, right? But if you just express your anger, don't you feel better? Mm-hmm. Especially if you do it in a healthy way, right? Like if you are able to be mad and go in like a rage room and just destroy things, there is a release that happens there, and it's that expression that allows the emotions to be metabolized and flow through your body, right? What we bury alive continues to thrive, and we can't heal what we don't feel. So if you decide actively, I'm not doing this, or even if you notice a pattern, you may not know in the moment that you have anger attached to a specific thing because your body has an emotional immune system. Just like if you get a cold or a flu, your immune system turns on, and that immune system says, ooh, we're going to attack this so that we can keep the body well. The same process happens with our emotions. When we activate or trigger that emotional immune system, oftentimes it's going to say, ooh, it's not safe to feel this emotion, so we're just going to stuff it down. And again, you might not consciously know this in the moment, but you will see a pattern. And there are certain emotions that are tied to specific parts of the body. So the liver, for example, is resentment and anger. If you have a lot of that you haven't been able to express, either consciously or subconsciously, you're going to have problems with your liver, right? Same thing. There's certain emotions that are tied to every part of your body. And then release is the antidote to rumination. So this is probably the hardest, because when you're ruminating, you know you're ruminating. And a lot of time we put on that victim cape and we're like, I deserve to be talking about this and to be heard and understood and valued and whatever that is. And so we just keep replaying it over and over and over and over again. But the problem is, who are we actually hurting in that scenario? Mm-hmm. Ourselves, right? And so the best way that you can metabolize that is to just release it, which sounds so easy. But let me give you some quick tips of what that looks like. So releasing can look like lymphatic drainage massage. It can look like journaling. It can look like breath work. It can look like creating art. It can look like really anything, listening to music, dancing it out. There are so many ways for you to express and release emotion that helps you metabolize it. You just have to find what works for you, right? I am a music person, so for me, the music I'm listening to is a barometer of my mood. Like if I'm listening to Pennywise, you should probably just keep walking, right? But if I'm listening to frequency music, then I'm probably real real amenable to whatever shenanigans you're bringing my way because I'm regulated, right? The biggest thing I want to say about this, though, is that surrender plays a role in releasing all of the intellectualization. You have to stop fighting your feelings and your emotions in order for them to metabolize. And it takes as much, if not more, energy to fight it and to hold on to it than it does to let it go. Do you mind if I share this story?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Do you mind?
No, you go ahead and share.
So I did one of the techniques that I use to help people release is through breath work. And I do that specifically because it's somatic and you don't always know what you're releasing. Usually it's just a way for the body to move it out without you having to relive it. So usually there's not a lot of trauma attached to it. If you know that there is a specific moment in time that you need to heal on, I have a process for that. And so the last time I did a breathwork session with Sierra, I have never had anybody physically try so hard to hold on to an emotion. The kind of breath work that I do is frequency breath work, and it's holotropic breathing. And so what happens is you increase the level of oxygen, which releases DMT in your brain. And that is the same process that happens if you take mushrooms or cannabis or ayahuasca. It's the same process. But unlike plant medicine, if it's too intense, you just increase your exhale, and within a few minutes, you can equal it out. It's not like plant medicine where you got to ride it out, baby. Yeah. You're on the train until it stops, right? Yeah. So there was a point where she was really holding on, and she was open to suggestion. I was like, Sierra, you just let it go. And she literally said, I don't want to. And I was I was like, babe, you're only hurting yourself. You have to let it go. And I don't know that we fully released it, but she got a lot in there.
Yeah.
And so, but even though she's awake and aware, right? Like we're having this conversation, but she's awake and aware. And she, in that moment, was saying like, I don't want to let it go, but that wasn't her talking. It was her talking, right? It wasn't her head that knows that it's not healthy for me to hold on to this. It was the brokenness that hadn't been processed that was like, I'm justified and I need to hold on to this because it's keeping me safe, right? It was creating safety for her. And there is safety on the other side too, right? So it took her being able to surrender even just a little bit.
Still to this day, this was weeks ago, I still feel lighter from it. And I know there's so much more work that I need to do, but it was so transformative, even though I barely let go.
Yeah. But I think though now what happened is we opened the door, right?
Yeah.
So now,
and I didn't have to like relive an experience. Like she did guide me to visualize something that I wanted to release, but it didn't feel like traumatic in the moment. You know, I didn't have to relive all of those horrible emotions. It was just trying to send love to that space.
It's a very gentle process that happens to release. But really the point of that story is just so that you understand it's there. So there's a couple of different books, and I'll talk about them really quickly, but I will link them also so that if in the replay, so that if you guys want to get them, because this is, I think a lot of people think that when you start talking about emotions, like, oh, it's woo-woo and there's no science behind it, but there actually is a lot of science on how emotion impacts your physiology. So the two books that I'll tell you, one is called The Body Keeps the Score. I never remember how to say the guy's last name. It's like Vander something. He's a doctor, and essentially the entire book talks about how when we experience traumatic events and we don't metabolize them and we don't process them, he doesn't call it that, but that is what the process is, they get stuck in our body. So you may notice, for example, every April, something really traumatic happened to you, and then 10 years from now, you're like in a real crap mood, and you're like, God, what is wrong with me? Like nothing even happened. Then all of a sudden you notice the date and you're like, Oh. If you have like, maybe somebody passes on a certain day and you'll feel sad years later and you're like, why do I feel so sad today? Like, and it's because your body literally keeps the score. I will say that there is a lot of modern science that will tell you that the reason for that is because your body is actually your subconscious. That everything that happens gets programmed from the subconscious level in your whole body. That is why the body keeps the score. The other book that I'll talk about really quickly, and then I'm going to launch this over to Sierra.
Can I speak really quick on that?
Yeah.
So after our session, the thing I was focusing on was just left a lot of anxiety in my body after our session, and the warmer weather's coming up. Like, so far I've been feeling totally fine, and because I think I had released part of that. Mm-hmm. And I'll think about the event, no emotion. Yeah. Your work is amazing. How to just like transform it, release it out of the body.
Well, and I'll say this, like I just got certified to teach it. I didn't create it. I didn't invent it. It's not my technique. I just learned how to do it because it helped me. I'm the kind of person that I am cool and calm in the storm. Like, if you need me to MacGyver a boat out of some palm fronds because we're stuck on an island, I'm your girl. We're getting off the island. But the second I feel physically safe, my emotions are going to crash. And what I learned as I was going through my own healing journey was so that same exercise that I did with you guys in the beginning of, focus on a regenerative emotion, I was like, oh shit, like I don't feel anything, which is cool. I'm not feeling anything bad, but I'm also not feeling anything good. And so it took a lot of healing for me to be able to do that. And what I've realized is if I don't routinely do frequency breath work, I hold on to so much emotion. I think we get in this rut of thinking that whole wellness is just our physiology, right? But being truly well, we're multidimensional beings, and being truly well is in all of these areas, in your physiology, in your emotions, in your social connections, in your spiritual connection, whatever that looks like. In your intellectual, like what are you doing to keep your brain busy and to learn and to grow and to be creative? And then occupational, so what are you doing as an avocation? So even if you're retired or you're at a place where you're not working a typical 9-to-5 job, or you're in a different season of life, what are you doing that lights you up and is work-like? So are you mentoring? Are you coaching? Are you volunteering? Are you teaching? Like, what does that look like for you? Our collective health and your baseline frequency as a human is wholly dependent on how balanced all of these are, right? So while I've spent a lot of time talking about the emotional side of things, Sierra is going to talk more about the physical side of things, but I don't want you to forget about how all these other pieces also play into your life, and thinking through, if you focus on these two as your base, right? So if we can get your emotions where you're feeling and you're allowing things to flow like a wave, right? Anybody can do anything for 90 seconds. And as far as I know, there is some 1 in a trillion case, but nobody has died from feeling emotions, right? Like, you don't, and I say that heartbreak sort of in jest, right? I say that sort of in jest because there is an emotion that is big, some people really do feel like if you are riddled with anxiety, you do feel like you're gonna die. Or if you have a moment of grief that is so intense, you feel like, oh, this is gonna break me. It won't actually. Right? Like, so far, every single person in this room has survived their worst day, right? And we are really resilient as humans, but we just have to trust ourselves and allow ourselves to actually feel what needs to be felt.
I'm just going to flow into the lymphatic system. We're getting really physiological now. Although I will preface it with, emotions definitely get stuck in the body, different areas of the body, like she mentioned, her ankle or your head or whatever. And so that's just kind of guiding us into what we'll all end on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just remember the other book. I forgot. It's by Gabor Mate. and it's called When the Body Says No. And in that book, he's a doctor, he's based in Canada. And in that book, what he talks about is that there are, you remember me saying that there's certain emotions that are tied to certain parts of your body. There are also emotional repression signatures tied to specific diseases. So for example, if you have most people that have cancer, even if you break it down to the type of cancer, have a certain emotional repression signature pattern that they all share. Same thing if you have ALS, if you have heart disease, and that is something that is common. So that is what he talks about, is sometimes you get to the point where your body says no. And while it can be physical, often there is a really intense emotional component to it.
So the lymphatic system, what is it? It detoxes the body. It should technically be called our immune system because about 90% of it is what is our immune system. It's getting rid of extra toxins in the body, used cells, blood cells that we no longer need after fighting infection, extra proteins, things like that. It takes it from the interstitial fluid, which is fluid between every single cell in the body, and it just sweeps it along, detoxes, filters it throughout the body. So there's over 700 lymph nodes in the body, and a third of them are all in the abdomen. And yeah, it's actually pretty crazy. So if you have digestive issues, bloating, things like that, it makes sense with the lymph being stuck in this space. And we'll refer to emotions with this area later on. The lymphatic system, it doesn't have its own pump like the blood does. The heart pumps the blood, but the lymph is pumped manually. So through movement of us activating our muscles, moving our limbs, or also through massage, we have to manually pump it. And so whenever we're not pumping it a lot, that's when stagnation occurs, and you can experience symptoms like brain fog, headaches, joint pain, rashes on the skin, acne, and just overall puffiness or bloating, swelling throughout the body because that fluid has nowhere to move. So whenever we first go into a fight or flight response, the pupils dilate so that we can survey the surrounding area for safety. What's going on? Where can we go? We get the tunnel vision. Our heart starts beating quicker to supply blood flow to all of our muscles so that we can either fight or flight, run away, or even freeze like a deer in the headlights to protect yourself. Your breathing accelerates, and this can happen, you may notice as well, with like anxiety, panic attacks, things like that. So basically, the fight or flight response is anytime we experience stress, whether it's minute, as little as driving in traffic and feeling anxiety, or a big traumatic experience. But it's all one and the same. And so the initial recovery after a stressful event like that, which is of course related to emotions, what we hold on to after something like that event, initial recovery would be your breath slows down. Your body's trying to go back into homeostasis. Your muscles start relaxing and your heartbeat slows down as well. You're no longer like, oh my God, what's happening? And so whenever we're in a fight or flight response for a prolonged amount of time, that turns into a chronic stress state. So a prolonged amount of time to me would be days, weeks, months, leading into years. So maybe we're in traffic every day and we feel this stress response for 30 minutes, but then we get our initial recovery, we feel fine. If you're doing this and then you go to work and you're stressed about, oh, what mood is my boss gonna be in? Is there drama with my coworkers? All this stuff. And then you feel like you're in that state for the entire day. It just kind of piles on top of each other, which in this modern world is so easy to be in a chronic stress state for a prolonged amount of time. I would also consider a chronic stress state to be maybe you do go into that recovery state, but not for long, 30 minutes, an hour, and then you're stressed again. Even if it's as tiny as having that anxiety, your heart beating more, but nothing giant and traumatic.
So like the 30-second pause I get while I'm hiding in the closet eating snacks
Not
where my
enough.
kids can't see, that's not enough time.
Yeah, it's not enough time.
Got it.
So whenever our body is in this chronic stress state, our blood pressure rises. This can lead to health issues, high blood pressure. We can get digestive issues because, again, the lymph isn't pumping on its own. We need to pump it. And whenever we're in a stress state, digestion is the least important thing. Survival is the most important. So that's put on the back burner. Your intestines, your muscles aren't moving to pump that lymph, and then we get the bloating or puffiness, whatever blockages. Next would be fatigue and sleep disturbances, because when we're in that fight or flight response, our hormones are activated. We have adrenaline, cortisol, all these things to energize us and get to a place of safety. But instead, we're in that state for so long that we actually kind of forget how to rest. Or maybe you feel depleted in the morning after your sleep because you didn't even sleep well. You drink your coffee, you're depleted again.
Are you talking about me? Like, I feel like you're just describing my whole life.
I'm like staring at you the whole time too. And then you might get like a burst of energy at the end of the night and you can't fall asleep for hours. Don't fall asleep until 3 a.m. That's just the cycle of a stressed state, and it continues day in and day out, ultimately leading to a weakened immune system. So again, our lymphatic system is our immune system. If it's not working, it's not pumping, maybe you're getting sick more often. Maybe you have chronic pain at this point, brain fog, memory loss, things like that, because it's not flowing. And all of this is pretty much because in a fight or flight response, our muscles are tense and it's restricting that flow. Chronic stress in relation to lymphatic health. Like I just mentioned, the chronic stress potential to impair lymphatic circulation affects the immune system long term in your immune response. So whenever the muscles are constricted, tight, tense, it restricts flow, and then that fluid can no longer move, causing stagnation, swelling, bloating in a certain area. And this is the most common thing that comes up in relation to emotional issues, like being stuck in the lymph specifically. There's other things we could talk about. I could talk about for hours another day, but just speaking on emotions with the lymphatic system, it usually shows up as puffiness or swelling in a specific area. The puffiness and the swelling showing up in certain areas. A really common area is going to be the eyes. So having bags under your eyes or puffiness below or around the eyes. In the lymphatic system, we have lymph nodes, lymphatic vessels, and lymphatic organs. And there's these organs that are called lacrimal glands and sacs, which are basically our tear ducts. And so those sit behind the eye and right in the front of the eye. And so whenever it's not flowing, something we say in like Chinese medicine and just in the holistic world is, what tears have I not shed? What tears am I resisting, holding on to, the suppression, like you mentioned, that I'm not allowing to release and leave my body? This can stagnate the area and cause those under eye bags. Next thing would be the face. The face gets puffy. You've heard of cortisol face because you're in that constant state of stress. Your hormones are imbalanced. Maybe your shoulders are really tight and tense because a lot of us hold our stress up here. That's going to block off the flow from draining from the head. So you're going to get that puffy face. You're going to feel brain fog, forgetfulness. Maybe you get headaches and migraines a lot because that fluid can't move. And what I like to say for this area is disassociation. Your head is in the clouds. And so you're not connected to your body. It's not draining. You're not getting that circulation. Also, overthinking. You're in your head too much. This happens to me. I had chronic migraines growing up, and I had a migraine for 2 straight days this week. And I was like, please let me feel better so I can show up. But I was overthinking. And, it just creates that restriction, that tension. There's no flow. Again, we want flow with the emotions, the energy, and also the fluid and the systems in our body. Next thing that's really common is the abdomen, like we mentioned. Maybe we have lots of bloating in this space, or this is the only area we can't lose weight. And it's that restriction. Maybe your digestion is off. You have diarrhea one day, you're constipated the next. There's no regulation. And for this area, we like to say, what have I stomached in my life? What have I had to take on that was a big hit to the stomach that I'm just not ready to let go of yet? And you're holding on to it as a form of protection. We create this padding as a literal padding for protection. The legs are a big one, especially with lymphatic drainage. Think of like edema, things like that. We get the puffiness, the swelling in the legs. This is going to be related to your root chakra, your safety, security. Are you comfortable with your life path? Your legs walk you through life, take you on your path. Are you comfortable with the life you had before or the life that you want to choose next, the next path you want to take? And just safety and security. Are you comfortable at home? Do you feel safe at home in your relationship? Do you feel comfortable with the amount of income that you're making or receiving? Do you feel safe? And if you don't, we typically, again, create that padding as protection. It's like creating this big pillow around you, like no one can hurt me, I'm protected. The first place swelling and inflammation shows up on me is my back, which is just really odd to me, but I've related it to having my own back. Typically I don't, or I didn't in the past. And so I'm creating that protection with padding on my physical back. So it shows up in these ways with emotions that we haven't processed, or we don't feel strong enough to show up in that space. And so our body is being strong for us in creating that padding, that protection. How does the benefits of lymphatic drainage and self-care practices? Once we get that moving, we're also moving the stuck energy in there. I've noticed a lot with my clients, like you said, kind of that memory of time of year or whatever. So whenever we do a session, it's very common that they'll start conversation and typically about something emotional, and maybe they haven't even thought about it in years or decades. You might not know why something's coming up, but it's coming up for a reason, because it doesn't want to be stuck in you anymore. You've held it long enough. You don't need to hold it anymore. Maybe it made you stronger. You're strong with it. You're strong without it. And so it's time.
Our bodies are designed to have energy move in and through us, not stay stuck, right? So and that goes for all, like it's not healthy to be at at the excitement level of like, oh, I'm at a rave, woo, all day, every day. Like that's not healthy for your body either, right? Like all emotion has to flow through us. All energy has to flow through us. If you think about the way that our bodies are designed, it is so cool because everything in our body has to flow. Mm-hmm. The emotions are no different. The lymphatic is no different. Everything in the universe, not even just humans, but everything in nature, everything that exists is designed to flow.
And it's all connected. Yes. Your emotions are going to affect the bodily system, which may affect another bodily system.
Yes.
And the longer we hold on to it, manifests as, these signs and symptoms that we see physically or feel. So benefits of manual lymphatic drainage is one, the obvious, pumping and supporting that lymph, getting it moving because it needs to move and it doesn't have its own pump. So we need to manually get that moving and pumping throughout the body to support your immune system, support all of your organs, and release those symptoms of the migraines, the headaches, brain fog, puffiness, digestive issues, all of that. And then second, to reset the nervous system and encourage a parasympathetic state. So when we're in a parasympathetic state, the body is finally able to soften and relax, and that's where true healing occurs. You don't really get true or full healing unless you're in that state. That's why sleep is so important. Meditating is huge and amazing and very common. And honestly, in a manual lymphatic drainage session, whether you do it professionally or on yourself, it's such a gentle and repetitive motion that it's almost meditative and immediately works with your nervous system and not just the lymphatics. So it's a great way to get you into that parasympathetic state.
And parasympathetic is rest and digest, right? So
Yes.
if you can't get into a state where you're resting and digesting, then you're constantly in fight, flight, freeze, fawn.
And you might even notice, like, if you're getting a professional session, that your stomach starts to gurgle. You start hearing it digesting because you're finally in that state where it's safe enough and relaxed enough to digest. It might even happen when you're hanging out with someone you feel really comfortable with, or when you're alone and you have your peace and quiet. You're like, I'm not hungry. Like, my stomach won't shut up, you know? And it's just finally things are able to move. Important ways to support your lymphatic system is 1, hydrate your body. If the fluid, the lymph is thin enough, it's easier to move. Think of like water versus oil. So we want to thin that out, which is going to be through hydrating. So a lot of people just kind of like drown themselves in water. They're like, I'm drinking so much water, I don't feel hydrated, whatever. It's because you're not hydrating at a cellular level, and we need to add minerals to that water to actually hydrate your cells and your tissues and not just flush straight through the body and pee out clear water. So we should be drinking half of our body weight in ounces of water. And that is going to be with electrolytes in it or minerals, something like that. A dash of lemon or something to just hydrate you more, activate and enliven that water to hydrate you at a cellular level. Next is going to be activating the Big Six. This was developed by Dr. Perry Nicholson. He calls it the Big Six, which is the main drainage sites with lymph nodes to drain the specific areas. So we want to work in a specific order as well. With the lymphatic system, you treat it like a highway. If there's a car accident or traffic, you can't get off the off-ramp if there's like a jumble of cars in front of you. There's no way. It's not possible. And so we have to clear certain areas before the rest can move. So number 1 is going to be the collarbone and upper neck, which is right up here. And lymphatic drainage is so light and gentle. You basically tug on the skin until it stops and you let it go back. And if you do this on each zone for about 8 to 15 pumps, you'll feel like a little pulse back. It might feel like a heartbeat, and that is your lymph fluid flowing through. It's right beneath the skin, and it works based off of pressure. So even the deeper lymph nodes, you can gently pump the skin in the tissue, and it will go deeper into the abdomen and draw it out. So number 2 is going to be on C1 and C2 of the neck. I do it right behind the ears. The third one is our axillary area, which is the underarm, just gentle pulses, or you can also tug and pull that skin. And this will drain the whole breast area as well, which is great for health in general, especially all of us being women in here. The abdomen, so I typically do this between like the sternum and your belly button, your navel. It's going to be right in the middle, and you would just do gentle pumping here. The inguinal area, which is your groin, and then behind the knees, this area gets puffy for a lot of people, so you just do little pumping there and help it go up the body, recirculate. Next is movement, because of course it can't move on its own. It needs a manual pump. This would be any type of movement, walking, stretching, yoga, dancing, something enjoyable to get you out
I
of
just
fight or
had a
flight.
light bulb moment.
Yeah.
So when I work out and I walk, I never wear my rings because I swell. I swell because I'm not moving enough in my regular everyday life or staying hydrated enough. Thank you, Sierra.
You're welcome.
That is why.
And before you walk or work out, you want to activate those zones so it can clear and not just get stuck in a different area.
My fingers get so swollen I can't get my rings off. So I always work out without them, but that,
Yeah.
now I know why. It's because my lymph isn't flowing.
Right?
I'm learning so much.
So you could do movement in fun ways that also help you de-stress at the same time. Maybe you enjoy walking over running. Maybe you would rather dance or jump around or jump on a trampoline with your kids. Anything that's enjoyable and doesn't feel like a hassle is going to be great for your lymphatic system and your nervous system.
Yeah.
Vibration therapy is also great. Breath work, as you've mentioned before. And then, like we talked about, hydrating the cells, you also want to eat a lot lighter and more whole foods versus less processed foods. So our immune system, our lymphatics is our immune system. And if we're already fighting off a lot of stuff, we don't want to add more processed junk to try and filter out. It's just going to overwhelm it more. So the more support we can give it, the better it'll flow.
Plus whole foods. This is really cool. You can Google it and you can find it. If you look up Kirlian photography, you can find, and there will be biophotonic pictures of like a strawberry where you can see the frequency around the strawberry. Things that are whole and living are high frequency and they naturally resonate with our body. So those kinds of food are naturally going to make you feel better. Really being careful with curating the inputs that you allow in your body, in your system, in your energy field is critical. Because if you're getting triggered all day long, then your emotional immune system is on all day long, and that then turns on your actual immune system, and you're just going to be toxic.
I have a question that I think would be supportive.
Yeah.
So if you feel like you can't express that emotion in that moment because it doesn't feel like a safe or healthy space to do it, you're in public, at work, whatever, what are techniques to release that emotion later on when you are comfortable and able to?
Yeah, that's
like,
a great
you're
question.
not just going to blow up and be angry for 90 seconds and then traumatize someone.
I mean, you could scream into a pillow. There's a lot of ways to do it in the moment, but I hear you because sometimes it's not appropriate. So there's a couple of different things. So as you mentioned already, meditation is great. Frequency music. So anybody on Spotify, if you just Google or search up frequency music on Spotify, there's tons there. Binaural beats is also really great before you go to sleep. Maybe use frequency over binaural beats to start with. Sometimes when you listen to binaural stuff, it kind of feels like somebody's taking like a washcloth and going like this in your ear, right? And that is good, but sometimes it can activate, like it can be stimulating instead of restful. So if you're going to do it before you go to bed, maybe start off slow. What's important is that you just find intentional time to process. So even if you can't do it in the moment, if it's truly not appropriate or for whatever reason, you just like, it's not a thing, like try if you can to just give yourself 90 seconds. So if that means like, okay, I'm going to excuse myself and go to the bathroom and just feel this for 90 seconds, or I'm going to go in my car for 90 seconds, or I'm just going to get up and walk around for 90 seconds. There's a lot of ways that you actually can, if you really try in the moment, even if there's other people around, you can just, okay, let me pause for a minute and just let yourself feel it. But then above and beyond that, it's just being intentional. One of the techniques that there's many of them, but one of the breathwork techniques is called heart math that I teach. And we did a little bit of it at the beginning, but you can actually learn how to do that. And it is designed for you to be able to do it no matter where you are, eyes open. And I actually do it all day, every day. Like if I'm in a meeting and someone's real pissing me off, I breathe through my heart space and use a specific technique. I also do it to like reset before I go, like on a phone call or in a meeting, or, there's a lot of different ways that you can learn how to use breath work in the moment that will also help it so that you're not activating. So energy flows where your attention goes. If you pause and think through like, okay, I'm thinking through my heart space, I'm breathing through my heart space right now, then what happens is you're putting a pause on where your attention is going. And when you put it on your heart space, it's like taking your foot off the gas pedal and allowing the thinking part of your brain to come back online so you can make a choice in the moment of, okay, I'm going to feel this. These heart math techniques and these breathwork techniques are designed for that specifically. They are designed for that because what happens is Anything that creates an electrical pulse also creates a magnetic field. And we physically have a magnetic biofield around us. And so what happens is, if you don't have to ask or give permission to be in someone else's biofield, in someone else's energy field, that is both a blessing and a curse. And the blessing part of it is that humans are hardwired and designed to resonate with the highest frequency in the room. Okay? So if I get coherent and you're not, you're going to come to my frequency because I'm the higher frequency. So the answer to that is you have to get coherent and your child will follow. And there are actually tons of studies that I can point you to where they have done this with, they've done it with babies, they've done it with dogs, they've done it with people that are far away, they've done it where they've put 4 or 5 people at a table and 3 of them are doing the techniques and 2 of them aren't, and those people raise their frequency to match everybody else. So that is the easiest way to do it, is to learn how to master yourself and to regulate yourself, and then you will influence. I call it my superpower. I do it on my teenagers all the time. My daughter will come in with the attitude and I'm like, not today, sis, not today. I'm in a good mood. I'm gonna stay in a good mood, and you're gonna come to my level, right? So the next one is gonna be with a chiropractor, and we're gonna talk about emotions in motion. And it's similar to the lymphatic system specifically, but he's gonna talk more about like joints and how some of that happens. Sierra and I both have, this is my heart aligned energy reset bundle. So if you want to, it comes with a assessment that helps you figure out like, how stressed am I and where is my well-being at right now. Then you get an ebook that goes with that helps you walk through how to kind of work through some of that. And then a 30-minute session with me where I can help guide you. And then you also get a post-assessment once you've been practicing the techniques that I've taught you, so that you yourself can see, oh, this is working. It's $99 if you're interested in doing that.
So the lymphatic reset bundle is going to be a manual lymphatic drainage session included with a large bag of lymphatic teas to support your circulation. And it also includes ear seeds, which is ear acupressure stickers, to stimulate the lymphatic system on the ear so that you have support for up to 5 days after your session.
Thank you all for coming.